This is Mitch, and welcome to the 1000houses.com podcast. I'm here with Dan Rochon, and he's over there in North Virginia, close to the D.C. area, and very successful man. He's done some pretty big things. We've talking before the show. We have some things in common in our personal journeys, and I already like this guy, and I haven't even got into it yet. So we're going to have fun. But right now, Dan, I got to pay homage to my sponsor, taxfreefuture.com. Thank you so much, taxfreefuture.com, for helping people learn how to shelter their income, postpone or defer their taxes indefinitely. I'm talking about things like 401ks, IRAs, self-directed and Roth, and health savings accounts. If you do not have a tax-deferred or tax-free environment in which to grow your finances, you have no idea the size of the tool you are missing in your tool belt. Please go to taxfreefuture.com. Look at the 37 little video vignettes. My favorite ones are how you take a little bit of money that you put into these accounts and grow it into a lot of money. So a lot of out-of-the-box thinking and always legal and forthright. So, all right, taxfreefuture.com. All right, I paid the bills, Dan, so.
Hey, now we can have fun.
Now we can have fun. So give us a little bit of background, because I know that if we really got into your whole journey, it would take us a million years. But give us the high points, and then I got some things I want to ask you already.
Yeah, sure. So Mitch, it's an honor to be here. Excuse the dog barking noise in the background. That'll go away in a moment.
No worries. Real life, man. Shit happens.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, so a little bit about me. So 2005, I was a waiter at a very high-end steakhouse in Washington, D.C., and I was struggling in my personal journey. And at the time, I was an active alcoholic, and I was waiting tables, and I was in my early 30s. I had already started, real estate investing about 10 years before then, but I didn't really have a pathway. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be significant. I wanted to be able to help people, but I couldn't see the way. Like, I didn't know what the pathway was. And so I gave up drinking in 2005. And then from 2005 to 7 was really when I really struggled about what's next in my pathway. And, I visited, seminars and looked at, all kinds of franchises. And what I realized was that even though I made a lot of money at the time and really had an opportunity to really meet a lot of really, celebrities, really high-end people that you would know for sure, I hated my job and I wanted to do something else. And then finally, a gentleman that I worked with called Bill, he had encouraged for me to take a look at real estate sales, and I did. And then 18 months later, I was able to buy the brokerage that I worked in. And 10 years after that, I was able to fail in the ownership of the brokerage that I bought. And so then I restarted the journey, and now I sell real estate full time. I coach, and I took some time to write a book called Real Estate Evolution that I share with other real estate agents on how they can be successful and avoid some mistakes that I made along the journey.
Well, so isn't that funny how there's always the big failure in everybody's success story? There's a lot. Like my book was My Life in 1,000 Houses. Failing forward to financial freedom. I fall down so often in that book that my nose should be flat. But as I interview, and I'm about to go on my 400th interview, and I'm very appreciative that people care enough to listen or have supported me and the people that I interview. But everybody's story has that time in the woods, right? And I want to tell you something. We have another parallel. I wasn't like 34 before I figured out how to find my butt with both hands. I mean, I was hard worker. I was very responsible. I always had the business of the month, which was always supported by bartending at night or whatever. Had the same issues with alcohol, although I don't know your story. I was highly functional. I mean, highly functional. No matter what drunk promise I made that night, I would get up in the morning, slap myself, ask, why in the hell did you say that? But now you got to do that because that's what you said. So I would always honor my word,
Mitch, I almost think, because I was highly functional as well, and I wrote a section in the book, and my editors, when they were going through it, my editor and I fought about this. It stayed in the book. And the editor wanted me to take out because I had mentioned that I was a highly functioning alcoholic and using those exact words. And I thought that that was a curse to me, because if I would have been a non-functioning alcoholic, I would have been forced to either make choices sooner, or I would have had really negative repercussions sooner. And so that high level of functionality sort of got in my way of choosing health sooner.
So again, another parallel in the writing of my book, I had people come to me all the time and say, "Are you sure you want to say this? Because it's not very becoming," And one time, my answer was, "Well, it's the truth. I mean, it's not pretty, and I'm sorry, but I mean, what do you want me to do? Go out here and lie to these people?" I mean, my point of writing the book was try to help people relate and then help them go forward. Like, I'm sure since you left that section in your book, it was important to leave that ugly part in, because that's one of my problems with all the self-help books, was no one was telling you the downside. No one was telling you the ugly parts. They're all showing you big fat checks and how to make a bunch of money, but no one's telling you what happens after the Get Rich seminar. When you get your ass out there, and then, why didn't they tell me people lie to you? Why didn't they tell me people aren't going to pay you and go file bankruptcy? Why didn't they tell me all this crap? I could have been prepared at least, but so when I did my book, I did the same thing. One time they asked me, because my wife was not an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And she screamed at me every day, "When are you going to get a job?" It's like, "Honey, I made more than you make all year in a month. What I don't get it," but she was from a certain mindset, was not an entrepreneur. And we had these big arguments, and I would touched on some of them in the book, and things that I did that I didn't even ask permission. I actually just said how it was going to be, and a kind of an ogre about it, because what was I going to do? Go work at Walmart? I mean, I didn't have a degree. And so anyways, they said, "Is your wife all right with this?" And so I went to my wife. I said, they're asking me to make sure you're all right with these chapters in this book. And I showed her, and she read them again. And I said, "Are you okay with it?" And she said, same thing I said. "It's not pretty, but it's the truth. That's what happened."
Yeah.
And I think people pick up when you're writing the truth. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it's important to be able to, as you mentioned, there's some lessons, right? So there's some parallel, stories between you and I, and we just met, and the outcome is probably a pretty parallel outcome as well, at least. And there is like no outcome. There's just here's where I am today. And so what I've recognized is that people that anticipate, that understand that they are in charge of designing their own life. So when you understand that you are in charge of designing your life, sometimes you're going to stub your toe. And when you stub your toe, and that's my analogy for making a mistake, because I don't believe that there are mistakes in life. I believe that there's learning opportunities in life. The only true mistake that you can make is by stubbing your toe and then not learning from it. That in of itself is what I would consider a mistake.
I would like to share, I just had a revelation just before I got in. I was reviewing things in my mind from I quit drinking and smoking on August the 1st, 2019. No DWI, no catastrophe, just I realized that I could go no further from where I was right now under the weight of what I was carrying, and I had to shed something. And the obvious thing was pointed at my vices, and so, but I realized something on the way, and then we were having meetings about my business today, about 8 businesses, but they're all intertwined. And everything progresses. Everything negative that you're doing, it progresses. Everything positive you do, it progresses. You can't hardly stop the progression, no matter what it is. And so if you could just learn to choose what you want to progress and what you don't want to progress, you would be better off if you sat down and kind of analyzed. And some of those changes, right, don't happen very quick. I prayed to God for 2 years to help me figure out how to get rid of some things that I don't want to carry anymore. I was afraid to even try because I was afraid I was going to fail. And then that would escalate things to a whole nother level. And I really didn't want to do certain things, but I would do it if I had to,
Yeah.
So,
I find that for me, it's, I'm sort of a boring guy, but I love life. So I don't care if I'm boring. Right. And here's where my boredom is I'm really, really hyper-focused on 3 areas of my life. And those 3 areas are my health, my family, and my businesses. And that's it, right? Like that is my life. which doesn't leave a lot of room for going to go watch football games and other types of things that, many of my friends enjoy. I'm just not that interested in it. Now I'll go and I'll enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. It's just not a priority to me. And, every once in a while I have to remind myself. Last night, I looked at my daughter, she's, we're all dealing with coronavirus and, we've been at home forever. And, I looked, she's 9 years old, Maggie. And you saw that she was a little bit antsy. And I said, hey, honey, I said, well, let's go do some s'mores. Right. And it was so cool. Right. So you spent a couple hours out there, just lit a fire out in the yard. I find that I have to focus more on that type of stuff. And, because, it is really healthy for me to focus on the 3 areas of my life that I do focus on, but then there are s'mores outside of that as well.
Yeah, but that s'mores was directly related to one of those three. It was family.
Yeah,
you were giving
right.
quality family time. You just gotta do a little extra, not just the norm. Do a little extra. So that's cool. So you said that your friend Bill kind of turned you on to the idea of real estate. But what was the event that happened where the light bulb went off and said, he's right, this is it? Or what was the event that sucked you in, that said that you felt like, all right, I see it now?
My brother-in-law, Dan, is, and this was when my wife and I were dating, and he's a very prosperous person, very, very wealthy. And I had perceived him at the time as, successful. Now, and I still perceive him as successful today, but for different reasons than I did then. Because one of the things that I learned about success is that judging somebody's outsides, you don't know what's going on their insides. And so I've shed the judgment of others of, are they successful or not successful, or whatever the case may be. But regardless, at the time, I really looked at him as a success. And he had this really beautiful sailboat. And we were out, lapping along the Chesapeake Bay and tacking back and forth. And, the wind was blowing and it was beautiful. And Dan looked at me, he says, Dan, has Tracy, my wife, has she introduced you to, it was a course called Landmark Curriculum? And I said, no, what is that? And he told me about what it was. And it was a curriculum that allowed for me to really dive deep into who I was and what was stopping me in life. And that was the moment right there where I realized that I could achieve in my life what I wanted to achieve. And so I think there was a struggle in between the fact that the time so that actually happened before Bill. I know that you asked me about Bill, but I think that was really the turn.
So you were open. You had opened up before that, so you could recognize Bill and recognize these things.
Yeah, I think that conversation there was just sort of like it was in the reticular activating system of just something that I recognized because I had opened up my mind to allow for myself to see, to hear that conversation and really feel like, yeah, you know what, that may be the pathway, and then I went, I realized I started studying. It was like, okay, $2,000 and 60 hours of a class. Well, that's a whole heck of a lot easier than $250,000 or $500 to go buy a Quiznos. So I'm in.
Yeah. There are multitudes and multitudes of ways to make money.
Yes.
Especially in this country. And you just have to start studying to find out where you belong. And a lot of it can be free, and a lot of it's doesn't cost a lot to get involved in to see if it's for you. I mean, sometimes you have to put out an investment to take it a little further to see if it's really the thing. But, I think the days of college degrees are not as necessary anymore if you're not built for that. And there's a lot of people not built for the traditional college way.
Yeah, I think college, I went to the Army instead of college. I think that college, I look at that as more of a transition stage from child from child to adult, right? And even though you're at the top end of being a child when you go away, right? But I look at that as more, I think what people learn in college is more how to adapt into, being self-reliant and dependent and taking care of themselves. And, some people fall flat on their face. I certainly did at that age. Most actually excel through those years and, then they come out and graduate and move on. And I think the learning opportunity for most is really more of the process than the academics of what they learn. And that's not for everybody, but that's sort of my perception on that.
So a lot to be said for understanding that the only thing holding us back is our limiting belief system, right? So your limiting belief system. I do this course called Private Money Changes Everything, where I help people raise private money to buy their investment properties or to exercise their investment strategies. And there are so many limiting beliefs just in that one topic. People are scared to death to go to private people and ask to borrow money or present an opportunity. And when I figure out what their limiting belief is, it's unbelievable sometimes what's because you'll say, I've told you exactly how to do it. What's holding you back? Because you're not putting up any numbers at all. You're not even knocking on one or two doors, and then you're shutting down. And then you find out what the limiting belief is, and then it's not hard to change it once you figure out what it is. But
it's going to be fear in most cases. It's going to be something that they're afraid of. In many cases, it's going to be fear of being judged. A fear of, if I take this action and I don't succeed, what does that mean about me? It's going to be somewhere in that area mostly.
Yeah, well, people were saying like, well, I don't speak the language that good, or I'm new in this business. I don't have a reputation. I'm too young. I had a bankruptcy. I don't have good credit or whatever. I finally get out to the bottom thing. It says, it doesn't matter. It's about the deal. Charles Manson should have been able to get a loan for this property. If it's a good enough deal, no one cares how many people you murdered. Just if you don't pay them back, they're going to get something that's very valuable, more valuable than they ever had. But it's amazing to see once they latch on to the answer that helps them solve their own limiting belief system, that boom, they're right out there and now they're doing it. And heaven forbid they get one success, and that one success is, even if it's for a tiny amount, like your first flip or your first sale in real estate, it's the confirmation that, hey, I did it, I can do it, and I can do it over and over again. And watch what happens when that limiting belief system goes away, right? I mean,
one of the things so I mentioned to you that I had a relatively significant business failure. And when I did, I took a lot of the debt, not quite 200,000, but almost 200,000 of debt. And it was a significant amount of debt that I was below zero. And even when I was in that financial position in my life, I consider myself wealthy. I consider myself wealthy in relationships, wealthy in spirit, wealthy in thought, mind, experience. And I never consider myself anything but a wealthy man, even when I was the opposite of that. Now, gratefully, I was able to work my way out of a very, very deep hole in a very short period of time. It was less than 2 years to work my way out of that hole. And I'm grateful that I was able to. I don't believe that if I didn't have the perspective of, hey, this is just part of the game, this is just part of the journey, that I could have gotten rid of such a significant debt in such a short period of time. And now I'm like, now I'm above zero, and I'm like, what? I just keep doing this, for the next couple of years, I'm good, right? And I'm going to amplify it.
You'll be up 200,000 instead of behind.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a second. So significant setbacks or failures, that kind of raises the bar. You have a choice. You can quit, or you can say, okay, now I got that to overcome too. It's funny.
Yeah.
One of my mentors was a POW. He got captured in the Bay of Pigs and stayed in Castro's hotel for 2.5 years, where they didn't do very nice things to him every friggin' morning at 6. And I asked him how he survived. He said this thing to me that I'll never forget. He said, the human body is the most adaptable thing in the world. And if you give it just enough water and just enough protein, and if you can keep your mind, the body will figure everything out. So what I'm saying is like, when you got that blow and you took on $200,000 worth of debt, you didn't quit, you kept your mind, you kept your positive, you kept your gratefulness, you kept saying, I'm still in the game. And then all of a sudden it raised your bar. Raised your bar. Like, I don't have to just feed myself now. I have to feed myself, and I have to make up 200 grand. So you start looking at the world different and scuttling things that don't fit that. And then you figured out how to make a lot of money.
Yeah. Not only that, but here's the thing. Compare my experience to your mentor's experience. It is not even, I'm like my heartache is about a 1 out of 1,000 compared to the journey that he went through. Right. So even if you think you're having a bad day, and I'm not going to take away there are times when we have bad days. There are times when bad things happen to us. And God, willing, maybe somebody in your life gets sick, or, there's things that are real. I'm not discounting that. I'm just suggesting that there's always other person's journey that has been more significant, where they have bad things happen to them every single morning for 2.5 years that I can't even imagine, and get out on the other side with a healthy perspective. That's phenomenal, right? There are, and so that's proof. To me, I just need evidence if that somebody else has done it before me. If somebody else can show that they've done something before me, flip a house, be successful in business, whatever the case may be, whatever it is that they do in front of me, then, now I just got to figure out how, right? And, the example that you use with your mentor, that's significant.
Well, I used it in kind of the same way that you said. I was capped. I didn't have a college degree. I was working my ass off. I was making people good money. I was being responsible. I was taking care of my job. I was taking care of everyone around me and my business, the business owner and his business. But no one was really rewarding me. And I wanted to go on my own, but I was afraid. After I talked to this guy, it's like, if you just have enough water and you just have enough protein, what's the chances in San Antonio, Texas, the United States of America, with all the friends and support in my family, that I'm not going to get enough water and that I'm not going to get enough protein? None. And then he said, so the only thing left, can I keep my mind? And I said, I'm going to take that challenge to keep my mind. And I took having a job off the table so I could back this body up into a corner so bad that it had to figure it out.
Yeah.
And the only thing I had to do was keep my mind from going back to a job. This guy had to keep his mind of, when am I getting out of here? When are they going to quit beating me? When are they going to quit starving me? When are they going to quit holding me in isolation? My deal was nothing, just like you said. So he gave me the confidence to try it. I backed my body up into a corner that I would not allow it to get out of until it fixed things. And to what that man said, I figured everything out.
Yeah, you know what? When I'm visualizing his experience, I think the most significant challenge that he might have experienced was the uncertainty.
Yeah, he didn't even know if it was going to end at all. Yeah. It could have gone on for years and years and years. It's easier to suffer through something that says, okay, I got 12 more months to go and this is over. Yeah. Well, he didn't know that. Yeah,
if you have a finish line, if you have a definitive, like, I can look forward to this, and, that doesn't make this misery go away, but at least I know when the misery is going to go away. That's completely different than, is this the rest of my life? Right? Like, can you imagine that? It's like, but Mitch, I want to talk to you about, something that we talk about, like, taking care of the mind, right? And something that I go through in my book is Real Estate Evolution is when you're taking care of the mind, there are hacks. There's a thing that's called a self-coaching model. And the self-coaching model is a model where there's a closed loop that we have as human beings, where how we program ourselves leads to what we think, and what we think leads to what we feel, which causes the actions that we do and that we create, which creates the results that we have, which goes back into the programming. And I call that a closed loop is because one feeds into the other. So if you listen to this right now, you can imagine like there's a circle, and at the top of that circle is programming, and then to the right, like a clock, it's sort of pointing around that, and the programming leads to the thoughts, leads to the feelings, the actions, to the results of the programming. The challenge that people have is, how do you break into that? And what I've learned is the hack to be able to break into that is through the programming. And then the programming would be specifically like, who am I hanging out with? Am I hanging out with high-minded people like Mitch? Am I feeding my brain with positive information? What am I reading? Am I exercising? Am I meditating? We're all making affirmations, right? Are you being in charge of the affirmations that you make? Again, if you stub your toe and you're like, oh, I'm stupid, that is an affirmation. If you stub your toe and you say, that hurts, I'm choosing not to hit my toe on that ever again, that's an affirmation that's going to empower you, right? So there's ways that you can actually scientifically succeed to be able to break through that closed loop to be able to achieve greater success.
Psycho-cybernetics, Maxwell.
John?
No.
That's not.
Malcolm. Anyways, it's now taken over by Somers, Somers, a lady. But it was the study of your self-talk and how you got to monitor your self-talk, because the person we talk to the most in the whole wide world is ourselves. And you got to watch what you say. And you should never say, I'm stupid or I'm an idiot. You should say things like, rephrase it like you said, that I can do much better than that. I will do much better next time. This is not going to happen to me again. I will be aware of what's next time, and this is what I'm going to do.
I think, real quick, I think when people hear that, some people think that's sort of woo-woo.
It's not woo-woo.
No, not at all. It is scientifically proven. And you go and you look at successful people time and time and time and time again, I promise you that those successful people have a healthy talk and a healthy conversation with themselves.
Yeah, you want to change your life, change the way you talk to yourself. Just try it. Try it. I believe it. So what is your core business right now?
Real estate sales and coaching. So I help real estate agents who are new agents to find the right way to success. I work with seasoned agents to be able to help them to, a lot of seasoned agents, they may have just had their best month ever. And now they feel like, can I do that again? Right? To be able to have that best month, January, February, March, every single month of the year. And then top producing agents who might be frustrated that they're working 18 hours a day and they're not able to participate in the life that they're creating. And so that's the CPI community. That is consistent, predictable income community. And that's for salespeople as well as real estate salespeople. And that's the coaching component to it. The real estate sales is through my company, Greetings Virginia, who's affiliated with Keller Williams Realty, by helping homeowners to be able to achieve their dreams and solve their problems. And those are my two core businesses. But just like you, I've got 7 or 8 that are sort of intertwined that, I'm a silent investor too, or whatever the case may be, that, feed each other.
Yeah. So you said seasoned, and one thing I recognize about being seasoned, because I'm seasoned in some things. You're seasoned. Some of us are more seasoned than others. I'm going on 60, so I've had a chance to be really well seasoned, if not overcooked. But sometimes that's kind of an acronym or equal to, we've got stuck in our own routine and we're not making changes to progress. We've gotten comfortable, or we think we know how this works, and we've got our own limiting beliefs now because we can kind of molded by what's around us. And a good coach, like someone can come in and present, how to break through that next level, how to get to the next level. That sounds what you're saying that you do, right?
It is. Oftentimes it's in their blind spot, right? So you sit there and they become complacent in life. I meet very few people who are consciously complacent in their lives and recognize the fact that they're not growing and they're not, what mostly happens is they get into that rut, as you say, and then they don't even recognize that there's more external to them, that there's more that they can achieve internally. Right. That they can. One of the biggest things. So you asked me earlier about, like that sort of that big aha moment of when I recognized. I had another big aha moment after I sold the brokerage, and that big aha moment was when I realized myself, and this was in the blinders for years and years and years, was I realized that I believed that I was not worthy. Now that I never recognized until I freed up my daily activity in my whirlwind to be able to allow for myself to contemplate and think and really, consider about what has gotten in my way, because I could never see it when I was in it. It wasn't until I shed the day to day when I can, reflect, on the journey where I realized that, I didn't believe subconsciously that I was worthy to achieve my goals at the time. And that was probably the biggest turning point in my life, when I realized I am worthy to achieve my goals. And that was the biggest launching point that I've experienced thus far.
So it's the problem of not being able to see the forest for the trees for a lot at these points. And you said something really key, which really jumps out to me. You had to slow and get rid of all the clutter so you could take time to reflect on more important basic things. And, you know, when I was doing 100 houses a year and I was running 16 hours a day, I always wanted to systematize my business, but I tried and failed like 4 times. And then I convinced myself that my house flipping business was really not something you could systematize, which was complete bullshit, because they push a Mercedes out the back end of a factory like every 30 seconds. What's more complicated, building a Mercedes-Benz luxury vehicle or flipping a house? So there's no question. I had mind screwed myself, kind of a cop out. But so I said, okay, and to your point again, I said, I'm going to get around some people that have done it before already. I'm going to pay for their attention. I'm going to get in the right place, in the right room with the people that have done what I want to do in the industry that I want to do it in. And I'm going to see if, and I thought at first that was the big thing that helped me get there. But when I looked back at how I really got there, one of the main things that I had done subconsciously was, at the point I was getting these coaches, I was going to wrap the business up in a box. When I tried to systematize the other 4 times, I never gave myself permission not to buy 100 houses a year. So I was trying to systematize with what little of me was left over after a massive, you know, big thing. And the year that I made it, I only bought 25, 30 houses, and those just walked in and fell down and signed themselves up. You know, wasn't even looking for them. It took me 14 months of not caring about business, of bringing in business. I spent 14 months just trying to fix the inside of my business. And then that's when it happened. So you have touched like on it exactly. I didn't plan this, but I mean, what you're saying, I'm comparing your words to my evolution, and it's exactly right.
I'm curious, did you actively take that time? I mean, you said you got a coach, so did you actively say, I'm going to slow down and figure this out? Or because for me, it was happenstance. I didn't mean to do it, right?
No, me too. Yeah. I didn't mean to do it, which is a sad state of affairs. I learned everything by accident, and then I go, oh, wow. Okay, that's what, Dan Rochon was talking about, 5 months later. Because what happened was I had gotten so worn out over the last 15 years of being everything, the buyer, the seller, the fundraiser, the marketer, the website guy, that I couldn't do it anymore. And I was going to quit. I was going to put it in a box. And I had bought a lot of forever assets. I buy self-storages, and I had bought enough that I never had to work again in my life. But I was going to fold that house flipping business up in a box and shut it down, which was $1 million plus a year, and I couldn't. I thought, what a shame to have to close it down and just throw away $1 million a year. Maybe, and then I said to myself, maybe I could just write $500,000 worth of checks to high-level people, and I could still keep at least 500, but it would run by itself. And that's what I set out to do. And I didn't care anymore about doing any more houses. So when I went to the mastermind, I didn't care about buying houses anymore, because quite frankly, I was wore out. I couldn't do it anymore. And so that became my breather. It was a shift in gears. It kind of freed my mind up from the clutter that you said. The clutter went away. I was focusing on these people. And then when they showed me how to do it, I didn't have to write checks to 500. I made more money than I ever made not doing anything in my business.
That's amazing, right?
Because the people that we figured out to put in each chair, once I got the right person, even though they weren't as good a house finder as me, they were better than me, because I was all divided up in 1,000 directions. So even though they weren't one-on-one as good as me, they were 2 times better than me at that one thing, because that's all they had to do.
Makes sense. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it was but the key was, I took the onus. I took all the clutter out of my life to study how to fix this one thing. You said you took all the clutter out of your life to study how to fix yourself. Yeah. I took the clutter out of my life, in this particular instance, how to fix my business. Inadvertently, subconsciously, I didn't know that's what I was doing. But when I had done that, that's when I had my breakthrough.
Yeah, and I think that my business has had a breakthrough simultaneously as me having a breakthrough. And just, I don't want the listeners or the viewers to miss that point there of it is tied together, right? And, and if you are struggling right now, it's probably something in the background. It's probably a belief that you created. And this might be interesting. It's probably a belief that you created when you were 5 years old. something happened at that point that created a programming that has been in the background for the rest of your life that has maybe served you, has maybe held you back, or, sometimes served you, sometimes held you back. And when you can address that level of understanding of, okay, I have this belief system of the world, and this belief system allows for me to serve others in this capacity, to achieve this in this capacity or not, then what is it that belief system is, and where did that come from? And when you can really dive into that, now you can alter the destiny.
Yeah, so here's one. Hey, Dad, how are you so good at what you do? If you want to do something right, son, you have to do it yourself. No one else can do it like you can do it. Completely wrong, but at age 5, that's my daddy said.
Yeah,
that's how it works. Well, maybe on some levels you do have to do certain things yourself, but on most of the time, someone's better than you somewhere. You ask the world for what you want, someone will show up that can do way more than you.
Yeah, and when they're doing what they're intended to do in their life, they're going to love it, and they're going to really appreciate where they are in their life.
Here's another one. You eat everything on your plate. If you put it on your plate, you eat it. That made me fat. Because
don't do that.
back when he was saying that, you remember in the 60s and the early 60s, portions at restaurants and portions that people, your plate wasn't very, now you go into a restaurant and you're heaped up, 6 inches tall of food, but that thought is still over there. It's on my plate now. I have to eat it all,
Yeah.
Well, no, you don't.
You wonder why we're all getting fat, right?
Yeah. So tell me about your book, Real Estate Evolution, in the CPI, Consistent Predictable Income. Is that right? Income? Consistent predictable income. Okay.
Yeah. So Real Estate Evolution, which is the guide to CPI, Consistent Predictable Income, which I wrote for real estate agents. And what we found is that the principles that help real estate agents also help in all sales industries, in all businesses, and for entrepreneurs. And as I mentioned, it's really a segment of personal development, a segment of my journey, and I hold nothing back on my journey. Just like I'm completely open, transparent, and candid in this conversation, same in the book. And then there's the exact, here is how to do the business. And there's different segments of, for example, if you are beginning in the real estate sales business, and this is true of any business, again, the first thing you have to figure out, if it's the house flipping business, you have to figure out where your business is going to come from. You have to figure out how to lead generate. Because if you don't figure out how to lead generate, it doesn't matter how skilled you are at anything else. Then you build on top of that in regards to, and we touched on this, of the organization that you build around you. So that's really more about systems, and systems can be systems and people, and when you look at that organization building, what I like to do is to rely on the systems first, because systems are more predictable than people. The sort of challenge with that is the fact that to be as a rainmaker, someone that's really good at finding business, it's not my skill set to take and document the step by step by step by step. So that means that I have to go find somebody first to document those steps. Then the business can rely on those steps, in those systems, and then you can build with other people around that. And then the last thing in business would be leadership. And my definition of leadership is to help other people to understand how to think so that they can achieve the goals that they want to achieve. And when you, as a leader or as a coach, are able to communicate with individuals in that manner so that they can then achieve what their goals are and their destiny and their aspirations, then you'll be in a position that that you can get much better results out of people. But it takes having the right people in place in the first place. So one builds upon itself, and that's what I go through in Real Estate Evolution.
Helping people get what they want so that you can get what you want. And so if you
absolutely
take the focus off yourself, help people achieve, take care of people, help them get what they need to do. And sometimes life just gets a lot easier. You get what you want. So you guys, I want you to go to 1000houses.com/evolution, EVOLUTION, and get a free copy of Real Estate Evolution. by Dan Rochon. Check it out. He's just going to ask. I always like to clarify this so we don't get any heat. He's given the book away free, but if a million people decide to do that today because my podcast is so popular, he'd be broke in shipping. So he's going to ask that you pay the shipping costs. Don't split hairs with me there, please. I do the same thing. I'll give you my book, My Life in 1,000 Houses, Failing Forward to Financial Freedom. I'll give it to you free if you'll pay the shipping and handling charge for me, because sometimes we don't think a lot of people are going to want something, and then 200,000 people want something, like, holy crap, that's a lot of shipping. All right, my friends, you said that you had built a brokerage. Were you a real estate broker? Is that what you failed at?
It was, yes, yeah. And I was a franchisee of a major real estate brokerage in the world.
What do you attribute your failure to?
My failure was not finding the right people for the right roles and being too spread thin, as what you mentioned before. The model is to find, for the owner to find somebody to, basically lead and run the organization. And my challenge that I had was I was really chasing 2 or 15 rabbits simultaneously. And, when you chase 2 or 15 rabbits simultaneously, you're not going to catch any of them. And so I was just like what you said, the same experience. I was spread so thin that I wasn't able to focus on the one thing of getting the right person to be able to lead the organization. That was the biggest challenge that I had. I had some great people in that role, right? They weren't the right people for me, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. So let's talk about it. I haven't coined very much, but I did coin this, and it always comes up again. I mean, the hardest thing an entrepreneur will ever do is have one great idea and finish big, because we as entrepreneurs see opportunity in everything. And so we think, but I've learned, just like you learned, every great idea takes everything you have to get it off the ground. Almost every great idea. It's very seldom will a deal just, you have it, you put someone in charge and it just takes off. It'll take everything you have for a year or 2 or maybe more. So please don't get the shiny object syndrome, or if you recognize that you have it, start to cut it back. Pick your biggest, best ideas, scuttle everything else. And once you have that running with no problem and hands off and you can sit back, then it's time to, because this is the other thing. What does an entrepreneur do when he has free time? He fills it up with another idea.
Yeah,
right?
he starts another business,
yeah.
or she starts another business.
Yeah. So I haven't seen the last 400 houses I bought. I haven't seen the last 400 people that bought my houses. And now here I am. This podcast is consuming for the longest time, consumed like all my days and nights, because I decided to go into another venture. I had no real expectations on it, but then I started seeing the opportunities and the what ifs, and if you could, and then, now the podcast has evolved into something I didn't even think it was going to be, but it took everything I had for a year and a half, everything. And I'm glad I did it, because what's cool about doing a podcast, Dan?
What's cool?
I get to talk to people like you.
Hey, all right.
You know what I mean?
That's fantastic.
I ask you if I could take you to lunch and rake your brain. You tell me to go jump in the lake. I say, hey, Dan, would you like to be on my podcast? I'd love to interview you. You go, yeah. And then the questions are all the same.
Yeah, we don't have to wear masks here at our lunch either.
Yeah. All right, man. So anything you'd like to talk, the listeners here are probably, in large part, people that want to be in real estate investing or flipping or some kind of strategy to be a real estate investor. Probably a lot of them are simultaneously or maybe realtors thinking about adding an extra strategy on, what would you say to those newer people that are looking at these industries, contemplating them for the first time?
Understand that you are getting, whether if it's house flipping, whether if it's wholesaling, whether if it's buy and hold, buy, fix and hold, or whatever
or becoming a real estate agent, whatever.
Yep. Or selling real estate, or becoming a barber, whatever it is that your entrepreneur aspirations are, understand that you're getting into the lead generation business, specializing in whatever industry it is that you're specializing in, right? So you're getting into lead generation business, specializing in finding wholesale deals. You're getting a lead generation business, specializing in real estate sales, whatever the case may be. Don't misunderstand that that's the starting point, and it's also the ending point of every business. Everything built upon that.
Yeah. In my business, nothing happens till you find a good deal on a house. Nothing.
That's right.
And so we're all marketers, no matter who you are. Even as a husband to your wife, we're marketing to her every day. You know what I mean? Like just.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. If you have kids, the kids are the greatest marketers in the world. They want, and they are selling you every day on it. You know, sometimes it's like, just listen to these kids, man. They don't give up. I get to learn a lot of sales lessons from these kids.
Yeah, the worst thing, my 9-year-old daughter, when she takes persuasive techniques back to me that I've taught her by her observing me, I just sort of shake my head and be like, honey, you're too smart. I love you so much.
Whatever you want here.
Here it is.
Here's my whole wallet. Just whatever it is.
Right. Just save me $1, please.
All right.
Mitch, I want to invite your listeners as well to online on Facebook. There's a Facebook group called CPI Community. And so if you're on Facebook and you just hit CPI Community, you can apply to join that. And that's for all salespeople. Really, really high-minded conversations take part on that as well. So that's one thing we want to mention as well.
Okay, we're going to put that in the show notes too. So if you go to 1000houses.com/evolution, we'll have a link to that Facebook community. So you don't have to remember this right now or write it down if you're listening in your car or whatever. So just remember the word evolution, 1000houses.com/evolution. And then if, just so you know, Dan, if you're speaking someplace or you come up with a product or you come up with another book or whatever, this show notes are evergreen. And this thing will be archived for, months and months and months, if not years and years. So feel free for your people to contact my people and add or subtract whatever is relevant, for whatever's going on in your life, please.
Thank you.
All right. Well, this is Mitch Stephen with the 1000houses.com podcast. I'd like to thank taxfreefuture.com for being our sponsor. Please go to taxfreefuture.com. Also wanted to add a couple things here that I'm usually remiss, but I'm going to not miss it today. One is I personally function off private money. If you're not, happy with what it takes to make 8 or 9% or 10%, with your idle funds, feel free to contact me, 210-669-4020. I have a lot of opportunity these days. My companies tend to really boom during economic chaos. Pandemic is no different. I boomed like crazy in the recession of 2008. Just by the nature of my strategy, it's a really different dynamic, but it's very true. So if you're out there, you have idle money and you want to have a conversation, no pressures ever, please give me a buzz, 210-669-4020, or just email me at mitch@1000houses.com. We'll have a very transparent conversation with no pressures and just show you what I do. All right, my friends, this is Mitch Stephen. I'd like to thank everybody for stopping by to get you some Dan Rochon. And go get that free book, Real Estate Evolution, and check out the CPI, Consistent Predictable Income. Just go to 1000houses.com/evolution. We're out of here.